Have you ever walked into a meeting and realised they've already decided what you meant before you even had a chance to explain yourself? Maybe a decision that you made has been misunderstood. Maybe something went wrong and suddenly everyone's looking in your direction. Maybe you found yourself defending your team, your carer, your service against what feels like the entire system. The frustrating part is that you can see something that they can't see. But here's the uncomfortable bit. They can probably see something that you can't see too. And that's where this work gets difficult. Because under pressure, we stop getting curious about each other's perspective and start defending our own. We form camps. We simplify. We decide who's right, and if we're really under pressure, we find someone to blame. And you can see this happening in the child protection reform conversation right now. Residential care is the problem. No, it's government. No, it's providers. No, it's funding. No, it's workforce quality. No, it's carers. And if you wait another 30 seconds, someone will usually tell you the answer as well, which is convenient. Apparently we've solved one of the most complex human systems we have before morning tea. But there's a pattern underneath all of this that I think we need to pay attention to. Trauma fragments. It fragments people, it fragments relationships, and under enough sustained pressure, it can fragment the system surrounding the child as well. That gives leadership a very different job. Not to pick the winning side, not to make everyone agree, but to build the conditions where different pieces of the truth can stay connected long enough to become something more complete. That's one of the central ideas behind the trauma transforming leadership. Trauma fragments people, relationships, and systems. Trauma transforming leadership builds conditions for integration. We already understand some of this at an individual level. A child who's experienced significant trauma may find it harder to regulate, harder to trust, harder to work out whether another person is safe, harder to stay connected when they feel threatened. But here's the bit we sometimes miss. The effects of that distress don't necessarily stop neatly at the boundary of the child's nervous system. They enter relationships. The child becomes distressed, the caregiver becomes anxious, the worker becomes worried, the team leader feels the pressure, the organisation becomes increasingly risk-focused. Other professionals become defensive. And pretty quickly, everyone starts behaving just a little bit differently. It's not because they're bad people, but it's because the whole system is carrying anxiety. Now, I'm not saying trauma magically jumps from one nervous system to another, but what travels through the system is pressure, urgency, uncertainty, anxiety, defensiveness. And those things begin changing how people communicate, how they interpret each other, and how they make decisions. And when enough pressure builds, something very predictable happens. We split. Now, trauma doesn't actually sit in the corner rubbing his hands together, planning the next stakeholder meeting, although sometimes it feels like it might. But fragmentation is a pattern that we repeatedly see around trauma. And under pressure, humans become very good at turning complicated problems into opposing sides. Carer versus professional, government versus provider, residential versus family-based, safety versus relationship, accountability versus compassion, child's voice versus adult responsibility. And here's what makes this particularly difficult. Most of these positions begin around something legit. Each side is usually protecting a truth. Someone arguing strongly for family-based care might be protecting attachment, belonging, connection, the opportunity for a child to experience ordinary family life. Someone arguing for highly capable specialist residential responses may be protecting another reality, that some children have extraordinarily complex needs. That there are times when highly skilled intensive support is required. Both may be seeing something vital. The danger begins when my piece of the truth becomes the whole truth. Because when I stop needing your perspective, I've already worked it out. And that's where teams get into trouble. Because the adults can be right about their piece and still be collectively wrong about the child. So think about that. The school can be right about what they're seeing. The carer can be right. The therapist can be right. The case manager can be right. And the overall response can still miss the child completely. Because nobody has integrated the pieces, which is the danger of fragmentation. And then comes one of our favorite shortcuts: blame. Blame's incredibly seductive in an anxious system. Because blame does something complexity stubbornly refuses to do. It gives us one answer, one cause, one villain, one place to point, which is tremendously efficient. Not particularly useful, but efficient. The provider, the department, the worker, the carer, the family, the placement. There. Found it. Problem solved. Except usually it isn't. Because once we've found someone to blame, we can stop asking all those irritatingly difficult questions about what else was happening. What information wasn't flowing? What decision was delayed? What role was unclear? What pressure was building? What did this person know? What didn't they know? What was happening between the adults? What was happening around the child? And that's why I keep coming back to this. When blame replaces curiosity, it starts doing the work of trauma. Because trauma fragments, and blame often fragments further. But that absolutely doesn't mean that we have to abandon accountability. In fact, I think accountability is essential. But blame and accountability are just not the same thing. Accountability asks what happened, what was our responsibility, what needs to change. Blame asks, who can we make the explanation? One creates movement, the other often creates camps. And once people feel blamed, guess what they tend to do? They defend themselves. They protect information. They become careful about what they say. They start proving their own position. So pressure creates certainty. Certainty creates blame. Blame creates defense. And defense weakens relationships. Information stops moving. The system fragments. And fragmentation creates more pressure. Beautiful little loop. Terrible place to work. Even worse place to be a child. So leadership has to interrupt that loop. Not by pretending that the pressure doesn't exist, not by getting everyone in a circle and asking them to agree, but by creating enough steadiness for curiosity to survive. Enough relational safety for people to say, I might be wrong. I don't understand that yet. That wasn't what I saw. Can you help me understand what you saw? Enough accountability for genuine problems to be addressed, and enough connection for learning to move across the system. That is trauma transforming leadership. It's not removing complexity, it's creating the conditions where complexity can be thought about rather than simply reacted to. This requires something that can feel deeply uncomfortable when everyone around you wants an answer. You have to become a little slower to know. Not slower to act when a child's unsafe, not vague, not indecisive. Not the leader sitting at the end of the table saying, well, perhaps every perspective is equally valid. No, sometimes someone is wrong. Sometimes practice is unsafe. Sometimes a decision needs to be made. Sometimes you need to act right now. But here's the distinction. Urgency of action doesn't require arrogance of thought. You can act decisively and remain curious. You can say, based on what we know right now, This is a decision that we're making. And then add, and we'll keep paying attention to what we learn. Which is very different from, I've worked it out, everyone else can stop talking. So when someone tells me that they have the answer to child protection, I become increasingly interested in the questions that they've stopped asking. Because complex systems punish premature certainty. A slower to know leader asks, what am I seeing? What am I not seeing? What does the other perspective help me to understand? What truth are they trying to protect? What happens if we take my preferred solution too far? What evidence would cause me to change my mind? Those questions keep the system open long enough to learn. And that brings us to another trap, one we humans are exceptionally good at falling into. Either or thinking. Either or feels good. It's clean. It's simple. It makes the PowerPoint slides much easier. Family-based care or residential care. Accountability or compassion. Safety or relationship. Child voice or adult authority. Pick one. Defend it. Go home. Except children don't live in PowerPoint slides. The real work is usually more complicated. It's often both and, not family-based care or specialist residential responses, but how do we maximize safe family-based care and maintain highly capable specialist responses when children need them? Not accountability or compassion, but how do we hold rigorous accountability and create enough relational safety that people will tell us when things are going wrong? Not child voice or adult responsibility, but how do we give children genuine influence and make sure adults continue to carry adult responsibility? That's integration. And integration doesn't mean compromise for the sake of keeping everybody happy. It doesn't mean taking two positions and finding a bland little midpoint somewhere in the middle. It asks something much more useful. What needs to be held together here? So here's a question I think leaders can use whenever a team starts collapsing into sides. I call it the integration question. What truth is each side protecting? And what becomes possible when we stop treating those truths as mutually exclusive? And then ask, what does this position help us see? What might it cause us to overlook? What happens if we take it to an extreme? What needs to sit alongside it? And then there's one final question, one that pulls us out of professional turf wars and back towards the reason that the system exists. What would the child experience if we got the integration right? And that question changes the conversation. Because now the goal isn't who wins, whose model wins, whose organisation wins, whose professional opinion wins. The question becomes what combination of understanding, relationships, and action gives this child the strongest chance of safety, of development, of belonging, and continuity. That's a very different conversation. And there's one more distinction here that I think is crucial. Integration doesn't mean agreement. A functioning child-centered team doesn't require everyone to think the same. In fact, if everyone around the table thinks exactly the same, I'd probably start wondering who stopped talking. Different perspectives are useful. Disagreement can be useful. Challenge can be useful. The issue is whether people can remain connected while they disagree. Integration means that we can hold different responsibilities, different expertise, different relationships with the child, and different perspectives without turning difference into fragmentation. I can challenge your thinking without needing to make you the problem. We can make a difficult decision without pretending the perspective we didn't choose had nothing useful to offer. We can hold someone accountable without reducing that person to the failure we're trying to understand. That's a much more demanding form of leadership. Last week I talked about why a placement is not a team. And this is one of the reasons that building the team is so difficult. Put enough good people around a child who's experienced trauma, then add chronic pressure, competing responsibilities, limited resources, risk, uncertainty, different professional frameworks, and people who genuinely care deeply about what happens, and fragmentation becomes surprisingly easy. The goal is not to make everyone think the same. The goal is to keep them connected long enough to think together. Because a child-centered team doesn't require everyone to think the same. It requires them to stay connected while thinking differently. And perhaps most importantly, the child shouldn't have to live inside the divisions between the adults. So the next time a meeting starts collapsing into sides, the next time you hear they're the problem, this is the answer, if they would just try slowing the conversation down. Ask, what truth is this person protecting? What truth might I be protecting? What are we missing? Where has curiosity disappeared? What needs to be held together? And what would the child experience if we got this right? Because trauma fragments, blame often fragments further. Leadership has to do something different. Trauma transforming leadership builds the conditions for integration. Next week, I'm going to make this very practical. I'm going to show you the child-centered team map, a simple way of making the adult system around one child visible. So we can see who's there, where the strengths are, where the gaps are, who's carrying too much, and which connections need strengthening. Because integration can't just stay as an idea. It has to become something that the child can actually experience.